Ray. No, I'm not. I'm just gonna keep it so serious.
Oh, there's a mic. I thought there was no mic. Sir? Thank you. No, no one's here yet. Friends was almost here. Didn't know anyone there. Yeah. And we were standing like on the corner of the stage. I guess I should probably leave myself up here. Yeah.
right, from the left, from the middle, representing a wide range of viewpoints and perspectives on American political life and global political life. And so a lot of names you would recognize, either from politics or from people who are pundits and scholars and leading thinkers in the area of democracy. It's called Reawakening the Spirit of Democracy. So if you're interested, check it out. It should be pretty cool.
Guys going on the Italy trip, remember you are dismissed today at 1. Please make sure you're down in the lower left by 1:15. You want to leave a little bit quicker because we're a little bit nervous about the 737 Boeing stuff that's going on. We want to get to the airport a little bit sooner.
They're not flying on the 730.
You're not flying.
Very pleased and very proud to introduce today's senior speaker, Prasad, please.
Good morning. Grateful. Although a commonly used term in modern-day language, I believe that most people lack the insight to properly understand the emotions encompassing such a word. The average man or woman may traditionally associate grateful with holidays such as Thanksgiving or Christmas. During these occasions, individuals spend time with their families or give and receive presents in attempts to grasp such an abstract concept. The original celebrations of these holidays may have been centered around the genuine beauty of powerful familial bond and unity to appreciate our own and each other's lives. However, I believe that now, for many American families, these holidays have dissolved into blind confirmations to age-old traditions. So when someone asks me, what are you grateful for this Ramadan, or what are you grateful for this Christmas, I'd probably give a fairly generic response, like my family, school, or money. I wouldn't think much of my answers. In fact, I frankly wouldn't care. I just wanted my relatives to get off my case. And I never questioned the convictions of my responses until one fateful day. Growing up in Karachi, Pakistan, even a toddler should have recognized the financial disparity between the socioeconomic classes. And with ever-changing political turmoil, unrest from the masses continuously altered the maelstrom of the nation's economy. For example, riots would break out in protest of unstable food prices and the jailing and murder of innocent men, women, and children as orchestrated and controlled by Pakistan's authoritarian theocracy. Regardless of extreme pollution, political corruption, or terrorism strikes, I fail to recognize the very blatant effects of the nation's tumultuous social landscape on those around me. However, my ignorance soon shattered at the news of my father's kidnapping when I was 6 years old. In the city of Karachi, people don't just go missing. Generally, they're taken, mostly for money. These abductors tend to take advantage of cultural magnitudes of the family bond, of course, for ransom. Kidnappers spare no one, from teachers to children, and as I just mentioned, my own father. And I don't have a great relationship with my dad, but I struggle to antagonize him. And like most children, he was the prime and most prominent male figure in my life. So I couldn't help but worry. I worried about how he walked out of Jalisi and Jalisi Hospital, how he may have stopped to take a fresh breath of polluted air, how he may have taken a moment to ogle at Irani carpet street vendors, his seemingly last sight of home. How in that moment of vulnerability, 2 gunmen approached my father's temples, each armed with a Type 56. The barrels were faintly warm, as if the gunmen fired rounds to ensure that the magazines wouldn't jam, that they'd be ready to kill at a moment's notice. I'd wonder how all 250 pounds of my father was stuffed into the trunk of a Matador, or how an onlooking pedestrian would see him vanish behind a speeding rickshaw. It'd be 2 weeks before we'd hear anything to lift our spirits. And in the mail, we received an ominous letter from the Pakistani Ministry of Defense, summoning my mother. We had no clue what was going on. My father had gone missing, and now my mother was being called by the military. She asked no questions. She only hoped that the Ministry of Defense would provide insight or aid into my father's sudden disappearance. 3 days later, she arrived at the steps of Ocean Tower, the tallest skyscraper in Karachi, and a very popular shopping center. At its peak was a penthouse she was destined to reach. After spending what seemed like an eternity in an elevator, she reached the penthouse, the personal home of a Pakistani general. After passing through thick, bulletproof glass doors, after being suspiciously frisked by two men in crisp black suits, each armed with silenced MP7s, she entered the general's home. She was taken aback by the poignant scent of smuggled rum and the beauty of the silk-woven Irani carpets. The general had been waiting for her. "Assalamu alaikum, Azraji." "Wa alaikum assalam, General Saab," she responded. "I apologize for the short notice," he said, "but this is an urgent matter. Do not worry, your husband is in my hands." "General Saab, pardon me, but what's going on?" my mother said. "You see," Azra, promptly dropping the honorific, "your husband had the audacity to believe that he could establish his own political identity without the army's approval. His only position should be that of a respected doctor from a respected family." His Urdu roughly translated, "If I wanted, I could have dropped him in the middle of the desert where the razor sand would have ripped his eyes apart and his hunger would drive him to death. The vultures would have been glad to feast on his blind, helpless corpse, but I know he has a family. I know he has an anxiously anticipating family, a beautiful wife and beautiful children, so I will take mercy on his soul. I will forgive him just this once." Completely shaken, my mother couldn't react, and without a moment's notice, she was ushered out by the general's guards. My mother couldn't process the information, and she came back home and refused to answer her children's onslaught of questions. 18 hours later, my father returned to our home, miraculously unharmed. He was dead silent, and at 3:43 a.m., he quietly ate dal chawal and fell asleep at the kitchen table. While my father remained calm and collected after his return, at least to me, I could not fathom the idea that my father was restricted from expressing his own political identity, his freedom of speech. I could not fathom the sheer concept of his life in jeopardy. The delusional paradise that enclosed my life had crumbled. I began to recognize my mother's and older sister's grief, the efforts of the servants who attended to my every desire, and my own youthful neglect. As a young child, this may have been my first instance of human mortality, but my father, who through my eyes appeared as a modern Hercules, abruptly became as human as his immortal comrade, Iphicles. The man whom I thought was the pinnacle of masculine invincibility was brought to his knees, shackled by adamantine chains of corruption. I realized that no matter my father's size, fame, or influence, all it would have taken was one bullet to the dome. One bullet to leave my mother a widow, and one bullet to leave me and my sister fatherless. One bullet to make me rethink every interaction I had with my father, to make me regret every night I stayed out to play street cricket instead of spending time with the man who made me who I am. This humble ordeal provided a grim awakening, a constant reminder to be aware of my community's misfortunes, like mass starvation, and to be grateful for my blessings, like a loving and financially thriving family. Gilman students, faculty, and staff, be truly grateful for what you have. Instead of giving scripted responses to questions around any holiday season, show and embrace how grateful you are. Take some time out of your schedules to ask how someone is doing. Ask them about their day, how they're feeling, and what you can do to make their day better and their life easier. Your nonverbal services don't have to be grandiose gestures. You can make breakfast, do the laundry, clean the kitchen, babysit your neighbor's kids, walk their dogs, and the list goes on and on. Let the people in your life know that you're grateful for them, and make the most of what you have now, because you never know how important someone is until you lose them. Thank you.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about my senior speech, close to 15 years. And I've decided that I want to make it very important and very memorable. And the prime way that I want to do that is to make sure that I give back to you, the community. As I think that sometimes senior speeches can get wrapped up about me and not be more about you. So even though this one might be called a little boring, I think it's crucially important. So make sure everyone sits up, pays attention. Mr. Smith, feel free to hand out attendance. Can't have that today because this is really for you guys. This is all for you. So when I was thinking about how I could help the student body, I wanted to pinpoint the absolute most embarrassing situation you could ever be in and figure out a way to solve it during my time here. After a long 15 years of brainstorming, I came up with what I thought was the most embarrassing thing that could happen to you. Imagine one day you're invited out onto a boat by a colleague, a friend, a family friend, etc. You have your outfit picked out, you're ready to go, take some pics for the gram, until you get on the boat and the captain asks you for a little bit of help and you realize that you know nothing about sailing knots. That is what I'm here to correct. I've brought a rope with me to demonstrate some sailing knots, some 30 few if we have time. Can someone help me move the podium so everyone can see me better? Thank you. While he's moving the podium, I'd like to thank Mr. Hubeck for allowing me to stay well until lunch if need be. First item is it's called a figure eight. Take this here, loop it here, one more, and now it gets tricky. We're going to need to go in, pull it through the loop, and quickly pull back.
be a Tuesday when we get back, and then try to figure out the best way to be able to pay. If that's it.